Here's the topics that we're going to be talking about today. First of all, I want to give you an overview of the 72-hour fasting tips. I want to go over the first week of how my autoimmune soup diet went, and I want to talk about different types of fasts that work for different types of people with weight problems, health problems, what kind of fasting window you might want to try. So, the reason why I'm going to go over my 72-hour fasting tips and give an overview of the 72-hour fast is because we are doing a group 72-hour fast that started last night and it's going until Wednesday evening. And if you are just now hearing about it, you're welcome to start in and join us and just go a little longer. And you can always just go as long as you want. If you have to drop out at the 48, at the 60 hour, there's no judgment, but you do get such a great feeling of accomplishment when you make it to those 72 hours. So I have a very long video that I did all about the 72-hour fast. And if you're a paid subscriber, you will get a follow-up email to this video, and I can link to that. You can also just search my Substack page for type in the word 72 hours under the search bar, and hopefully that will come up and you can also review that. But I'm just going to real quick run through some of the basics of the 72-hour fast, and feel free at any moment to jump in with a message on the bottom of your screen. You should see a little red message. So feel free to interrupt me at any point with a question. So here we go. First of all, let's talk about why would somebody do a 72-hour fast. It's really about breaking through your insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is when cells are no longer responding correctly to the insulin signal. It's also for ridding the body of the spike protein. Some of my subscribers have spike proteins up to 25,000 plus, which means they're outside the range that the test goes. And so doing a 72-hour fast is one of the very best ways to rid the body of the spike protein. So I follow Dr. Pierre Corey. He has a clinic where he specializes in ridding people of the spike protein, whether it's through vaccine or just through long COVID. And he puts the 72-hour fast at the very top of his protocol. It's ahead of ivermectin, nattokinase, all of medications and supplements he recommends. The 72-hour fast is at the top. So that's awesome. Another thing it does is it completely renews your immune system. So it does this in other parts of the body too, but your body, when you're fasting, will target old cells, and then when you eat again, it renews those cells from stem cells. So you get a flood of stem cells. And just really quick biology, when your cell divides, one cell divides into two, and if that one cell was 2 weeks old, now you have two cells that are 2 weeks old, and then 2 weeks later those two cells divide into four cells that are all 4 weeks old. They're not giving birth to a baby cell. So the only way that you have brand new cells is from immune cells. From making, what is the word that I'm trying to think of? This is the spike protein entering my system. Stem cells, thank you. It's only from making stem cells that you get brand new baby cells. And so a lot of body tissues get broken down when you're fasting, and then they get renewed from stem cells. You get a flood of stem cells after the 72-hour fast. Your body will also target cancer cells and something else called senescent cells when they've just been the cells have been multiplying over and over and over and just breaking down. They're getting older and older, and then sometimes they just sit there and consume resources and also let off inflammatory cytokines that signal cells nearby to go into senescence. And so when you fast, your body targets those. So I see I have a question. And Greg Robbins says that he successfully reversed prediabetes diagnosis 3 weeks after doing fasting and keto diet. Thank you so much for sharing that, Greg. I can't tell you how many, I wish I would have been better at documenting this, but how many people have reversed either prediabetes or regular diabetes within weeks of doing fasting and keto diet. It is so incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that, Greg. And if any of the rest of you have something like a testimony like that, pop in at any time and type that in the comments. I know we have another listener named Dennis who, I'm not sure if he's on this call today, but Dennis lost 115 pounds through fasting. So shout out to him. Um, yeah, and JJ said the senescent cells are also called zombie cells because they're just sitting there taking up nutrients, putting out inflammatory cytokines. And aging is largely characterized by senescence. So you can really slow down your aging by doing the 72-hour fast. The only person who should not do it is if you're extremely underweight. And in that case, you can do a fast mimicking diet where you eat a high amount of fat, and I'm talking about 70% fat, small amount of protein, and zero carbs, and you can get a similar effect. So let's see. Alex said that he or she, I can't tell, saw a story about a guy who supposedly sun-charged water and used that to make a prolonged fasting. The sunlight stored energy in water. Never tried it, but seems curious in relation to people saying that water can store memory and has different states. I have read all that stuff about water, and I think it's fascinating, and I say go ahead and try it. There's so many interesting things about water. There's the fourth phase of water, the zeta potential. There's deuterium depleted water. There's structured water. So many interesting things about water. I'm not, I've read it, but I can't say that I understand it. Okay, Alex is a guy. Thank you, since I also know Alexes who are women, so thank you for clarifying that. But that was, yeah, I try the sun-charged water. I just realized that I forgot my headphones. And I also realized that I forgot to tell people to give me a heads up if you can hear. Okay, you guys, so at least this time, even though I forgot my headphones, at least you didn't have to watch me wander around my entire house looking for them, like has happened in other videos. So I think I'm improving, maybe just a little bit. Okay, so a couple more things about the 72-hour fast. Remember to do the clean fast. Oh yes, let me see. Alex said, yes, you know if. Let's see, you sound fine without them. Okay, that's interesting. Sometimes people say they can't hear me when I don't have them in. So if you can hear me well, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I would love that. Okay. So remember to do the clean fast. So this means that your only choices are water, black coffee, and black tea. People always ask me about green tea, and I always feel like it's a gray area. Green tea makes me feel hungry. Oh, good, Eda. I'm glad you can hear me. And Sarah, green tea makes me feel hungry and a little bit off. And actually, to tell you the truth, I tend to only do water. I tend to avoid the black coffee and the black tea when I'm doing a 72-hour fast just because it doesn't feel good on my stomach. But for people who are dependent on caffeine, that might not be a possibility. So go ahead and just do what you think is best in that area. You can also have any kind of bubbly water that's not flavored. So you can't have like LaCroix and all those knockoff brands, but you can just have sparkling water, which I love to do. And avoid, herbal teas, and avoid gum, and avoid pickle juice, and avoid bone broth, even though it's a great thing to have in general, just not when you're fasting. Avoid stevia. Don't put stevia in your black coffee. Don't have a black coffee that's French vanilla flavored grounds. You know how they make those. So one more tip is just to remind you guys, and I know I said this in the old video, but just to remind you, if you're doing the 72-hour fast, it is 90% mental. So what do I mean by that? I mean that it's not going to be as hard physically as you're imagining it. It's going to be your brain wanting to eat. So I have some tips for that. Stay busy, of course, with both an activity that you need to get done, like something like cleaning out the garage or cleaning out your drawers, organizing your closet, going through clothes you don't wear anymore, organizing your pantry, cleaning out your fridge, any kind of project that you need to do. And then also plan something each day that you really want to do. And that could be a creative outlet that you love, like sewing or knitting or gardening or whatever you love to do. It could also be something like watching a movie. But just plan something to look forward to instead of food, in light of not having food. And last of all, lean into the spa day treatment, meaning there's all kinds of beautiful things going on in the inside of your body to renew you from the inside, to get rid of these old cells, to break down tissue that hasn't been working. A lot of times people will tell me that they had a knee injury 20 years ago, and when they're fasting, their knee starts to hurt a little bit. And it's like your body's mobilizing and it's getting to those projects that it never had time to do because it was so busy digesting food. So um, make sure that you do something spa-like to remind yourself of what's going on in the inside of your body. So this, you don't have to, but I think women kind of enjoy this part of it a little bit more, but it can be Epsom salt baths, baking soda in the bath as well, for detoxification. Ladies painting nails, shaving legs is always fun. Maybe do something like go get your nails done. Just something, excuse me, to reward yourself for how well you're doing. I like to do my red light therapy when I'm doing it, and I like to do a lymph massage. I linked that in one of my other videos, but I can link it again, a video that shows you how to do a lymph massage. Basically, you have 6 lymph points, and it's really important the order that you massage them in. So you have your collarbone right here, and you just go ahead and kind of go like this for a couple minutes, and then you have behind your ears is point number 2. So you have 1, 2, and then under your armpits is point number 3, and then your stomach's point 4. Your groin is kind of like the side of your leg, is point number 5, and then behind your knee is point number 6. And the lymph doesn't have anything to move it like the heart does. And especially when you're fasting and you're going to be releasing toxins from your from your fat cells. We all have toxins in our fat cells. You don't want them going to the lymph and stagnating. So you want to get things moving through the lymph. Walking also helps with that. And if you have a rebounder, you could do your rebounder, but I don't have a rebounder. I just walk and I do lymph massage. And sometimes I do the lymph massage when I'm sitting in, actually often I do it when I'm sitting in the bath with the Epsom salts and stuff. I'll just kind of go, and remember you have to do an order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When I'm sitting in the bath, I'll do that. And then when I get out, I usually put magnesium oil on to be absorbed so that you have extra magnesium while you're fasting. And then just another tip, if you need a special treat, like say you're out at the grocery store and you're looking at the food and you feel so hungry. And by the way, I tend to avoid the grocery store. When I'm doing longer fasts, I'll do like a Walmart pickup if I need groceries. But I actually am going to run out to the grocery store today because I need some organic vegetables for my soups, and I'm going to buy myself a special treat. It's called Gerald Steiner sparkling water. And it's just so delicious. It's a high mineral water. I'm probably going to add a little salt to it, and it's my special treat. So if you need a special treat, find a sparkling water that you just love. I just love Gerald Steiner. It's so tasty. Chill it, and then when the rest of your family's eating dinner, pour it into a wine glass and just sit there. And remember that the key to all of these health things that we do is never feeling sorry for ourselves. We need to make sure we never feel sorry for ourselves. So sit there and be genuinely thankful for your sparkling water and for the cleansing that's taking place, and that you have the opportunity and the knowledge to do this kind of fasting. And that is going to get you so far. So I'm just going to review really quick and make sure I didn't miss any questions. Okay, I don't think I missed any questions. And if I ever don't respond to your question, it's not because I hate you, it's because I missed it. And go ahead and ask it again. All right. So I think the last tip that I have to give you for the 72-hour fast is to give yourself 2 hours to break the fast. So if you stopped eating Sunday at 5, to be very strict about it, you shouldn't eat again until Wednesday at 5. But I always give people permission to spend 2 hours breaking their fast and not consider it just suspending the rules, because once you start drinking bone broth, you are actually breaking your fast. But especially with the 72-hour fast, it's really tricky to make it to the 72 hours with the 2 hours of breaking fast. And I'd so much rather somebody break it 2 hours earlier and then do it properly then wait till 5 o'clock, and then they can't eat till 7. So give yourself 2 hours of sipping on something. Bone broth is the best thing. You can also eat little bits of sauerkraut to wake your stomach back up and your digestive system back up. And if you do not do this, then you will have very violent diarrhea as soon as you eat. So you got to wake things back up. Now, a lot of people are telling me, and this has happened to me as well, that no matter how slowly they wake their stomach up, they still have the diarrhea after the 72-hour fast. And so I tend to think of this as being a detox reaction, that your body has a lot of toxins, and as soon as you eat, it feels free to just flush everything out of your digestive tract and start anew. So that's my theory. You should use charcoal during your fast whenever you don't feel very well. I use a product called, it's by Cellular Solutions. It's called Gut Clear, or Gut CLR, Gut Clear. It's a bit pricier, so you can always just use the plain charcoal, which only costs about $10 for a bottle. But if you look at the label on this, it says for the suggested use, it says take 2 to 6 capsules. So you can actually take up to 6 capsules if while you're fasting you feel a little bit off, a little bit achy, maybe a little bit of headachy. That can be the toxins being released from your fat cells. And so kind of a rule of thumb, when you don't know exactly how much charcoal to take, a rule of thumb to start with would be 2 tablets 3 times a day. 2 tablets in the morning, 2 tablets in the middle of the day, 2 tablets at night. But if you're feeling especially bad, you can move that up to 6 tablets. Yep. And then, of course, you'll be on an empty stomach. But just so you know, for other times, if you're taking this when you're not under an empty stomach, it says 60 minutes after all supplements and 2 hours after all medications. So it really just absorbs everything. So you just want to make sure you're not taking it with other things. But that's easy when we're fasting. Okay, so last thing is that you need to make sure that you break your fast with probiotics, because your opportunistic bacteria, which are not good for you, and they cause overgrowth, they cause SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or they're just crowding out your good bacteria, which make B vitamins and produce so many healthful things for your body. They will be at an all-time low at the end of the 72-hour fast. What that means is it's created real estate for your beneficial bacteria to bloom. So giving them sauerkraut and kimchi and kefir are the 3 top probiotics. I love kefir, but I also always do sauerkraut. And the reason is because the little bacteria can hide inside the sauerkraut and make it through your stomach acid into your intestine to populate it there with beneficial bacteria. And so you want to do that. That should be the first thing that you eat after your 72-hour fast, should be some sort of probiotic. And you can also use it for the prep phase, that 2 hours when you're waking your stomach up, little sips of kefir, little tiny bites of sauerkraut to get you going. And rule of thumb is the longer that you fast, the longer you need that stomach prep period. So those of you who are doing the 36-hour fast, you might only need a half hour to an hour to wake your stomach up. But 72 hours, you're going to need to give yourself a good 2 hours. But like I said, if you are running to the bathroom with diarrhea anyway, just consider your body cleansing itself. And it's not that you did anything wrong or the fast was bad for you. It's just your body's like, all right, let's clean out some stuff. Let's get rid of some stuff and start fresh. And the cells that live in your intestines renew themselves constantly. Like they might only live for 24, 48 hours, whereas the other cells in your body can last for months. Nerve cells can last for years. I think it's like 6 to 8 years. I don't remember the exact time, but depending on the type of cell, they have completely different life cycles. And the cells in your intestines are very, very short-lived. So you can get an entire intestinal renewal by doing a 72-hour fast. And so some of that diarrhea might be your body sloughing off the old dead cells and renewing the new cells. And so we don't know exactly what's going on in there, but don't worry about it too much if that happens to you. So any questions about the 72-hour fast, go ahead and just drop them in there. And also, if you are doing the 72-hour fast with me, would you go ahead and just give me a thumbs up in that little message box? And I'm just curious how many of you are there. So wait for that. I guess while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to start talking to you guys about, yay, Ruth is doing 72 hours. Yay. Um, I want to give you guys the 1 week lowdown of my soup diet. Elissa is doing the 72-hour. Yay, Elissa. Emily said, so it's better to break 2 hours earlier rather than eat late on Wednesday night. I actually believe it is. Definitely. Definitely better to break 2 hours earlier rather than to eat late on Wednesday night. I'm so glad you asked that, just so I can clarify that when 72 hours is a long time. And if you were like super type A and this bothers you, then on Sunday night you could stop eating at 3 p.m. and then you can make it to that exactly 72-hour point. But you're not getting very many calories in during that 2 hour break anyway. So that's why I'd rather fudge it on that end rather than make you wait until 5, or maybe some people didn't even stop eating till 6 on Sunday. Then you have to break your fast. You have to spend 2 hours breaking your fast, and then you can't even eat till 8 p.m. That's just a mess. You might have heartburn. You might be running to the bathroom with diarrhea, and then you just don't want your sleep to be messed up and stuff. So I'd really rather you break 2 hours early and go nice and slow with the 2 hours of the broth or the kimchi or the kefir, just taking tiny, tiny sips, and then rather than you eating late. So Wendy Webb, yay. Emily Schmitz is joining us. Sarah McGrath, Sean, yay. Ruth. Okay, so Ruth said, remind me, how do we eat for the rest of the week, Thursday on? Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because I try to jot down some notes before I do this live, because I'm not very good at talking off the top of my head, and I'm gonna forget something. And I did forget that. And I forgot to even put it in my notes about what I shouldn't forget. So that is such a great question. Thank you, Ruth, for asking that. So let's say that you normally do an OMAD. You normally just do one meal a day. After you do a 72-hour fast, you're not going to go back to your normal fasting pattern until the following week. Okay, so this is what it looks like. You're fasting from Sunday, maybe you stopped eating at 5 p.m. till Wednesday at 5 p.m. That's 72 hours. Of course, you started breaking 2 hours early, but you didn't actually sit down and eat a meal till Wednesday at 5 p.m. So you eat that meal Wednesday at 5 p.m. And then Thursday, you're going to have what's called an up day. Now, an up day means at least 2 meals, and you can have 3. So Thursday, you get to eat breakfast. You're not going to do an OMAD on Thursday like you normally do. You're going to do an up day. If you wake up in the morning and you have that kind of belly hunker, like you probably will after not eating for 3 days and then just having one meal on Wednesday night, and you're probably going to eat a lighter meal on Wednesday night, and make sure it's high protein. Make sure it's very, very low on the carbs, because that's going to just swing your blood sugar all kinds of crazy directions. Let me explain something really, really nerdy right now. When you get to the end of your 72-hour fast, because I don't think I've ever explained this before, your cells are going to be entirely insulin sensitive. That means that you get the slightest amount of insulin released. They are going to suck everything up into the cell. So if you eat a lot of carbs, you're all of a sudden going to have this weird crash where all of the electrolytes and everything good in your bloodstream is just going to get sucked in, and your electrolytes are going to drop, and you're just going to feel like you need to fall asleep. And you're going to just feel so sluggish and so lethargic. But if you eat a really high protein meal, and maybe you just shouldn't even have any carbs on Wednesday night, or very, very, very few at the end of your meal. Now, when I talk about carbs, I never mean vegetables, because vegetables do technically have a few carbs in them. But I'm talking about like bread, rice, pasta, potato, crackers, stuff like that. I would have very, very few, because you're so insulin sensitive, and you're going to just make yourself feel really, really bad. So Danny asked, I started a little late. Can you go over your keto diet? Oh, I will. I'm just about to go over that. I'm so glad you asked, Danny. I'll go over that in just a second. So
You're not going to return to your regular fasting schedule after the 72-hour fast until the following week. So Thursday needs to be an update. Friday and Saturday and Sunday, you are allowed to do 16-8, but no more fasting than that. So you, like I said, an up day has to have 2 meals in it. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are all technically up meals. Now, I'm not going to make you eat breakfast the second you wake up in the morning or anything like that, unless you feel a genuine like belly hungry, not like you're craving cinnamon rolls. I'm not talking about that kind of hunger. I'm talking about like deep in your belly kind of a hunger, and you'll be able to tell the difference between that and you want something sweet, like you'll be craving eggs and bacon. As soon as you feel that, I want you to eat. But it's very important that you don't eat a lot of carbs and that you don't binge. You don't want to get into like a fast binge cycle. I know I always use the term feast. This is called fast well, feast well, but remember, it's feast well. So binging is not feasting well. Really emphasize the vegetables, the meats, and the healthy fats. And so you're going to do that for 4 days following your 36-hour fast. So the principle is the longer you fast, the longer your up days. So for those of you, I have quite a few people now all doing the 36, 3 times 36 or 3 times 40 schedule, which means that they don't eat Monday, Wednesdays, or Fridays, and they're doing 40-hour fasts Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So for you, since it's only a 40 or a 36-hour fast, you're fine doing Tuesday's your up day and you start fasting again. Thursday's your up day, you start fasting again. It works perfectly fine for you to do that. But when you do a 72-hour fast, your recovery period's a lot longer. So it's the same thing with the 48. When you do the 48-hour fast, your recovery period is the meal that breaks the fast. So you start fasting Sunday at, let's say, 5 p.m. You fast till Tuesday at 5 p.m. Then you eat a meal Tuesday night, and then you eat 2 to 3 meals on Wednesday. So 48 is a longer fast, so you have a longer recovery period. And you're really trying to rebuild a broken down muscle. Bone that needed to be rebuilt is going to be broken down while you're fasting. And then you're giving your body nutrients for building that back up. So build up, rebuild Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday you can do a 36 if you want with the group, and then the rest of the week you can go back to your OMAD or your 18-6 or your 19-5 or whatever you do on a daily basis. So I know you're kind of feeling like, hey, I'm into this groove. Like I always fast this many hours and I always eat at this time. But the 72-hour fast is really, really, really important to rebuild muscle, rebuild bone, rebuild skin, all the stuff that was broken down after your long fast. So that's kind of how that works. And thank you for that question, for reminding me that. Okay, so now we get to move on to a fun part where I get to tell you guys about my autoimmune diet and how it's going. So just to catch everybody up in case everybody hasn't heard, supposedly I have Hashimoto's disease, although I'm not completely embracing that as my identity, because I'm going to try my darndest to overcome this thing. And if it doesn't work, at least I know I tried. So my version of trying is I found my favorite researcher. Her name is Mary Ruddick. There's nobody that I've ever found that I'm more aligned with on everything. And so she came up with an autoimmune diet that is way, 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 way stricter than the autoimmune protocol, AIP, that everybody talks about. That's nothing. That's nothing compared to this. She's trying to cut out so many things. And so basically what this comes down to is you eat nothing but soup for 1 month, and you eat soup from 4 different recipes that she gives you. 2 of them are a chicken version and 2 of them are a beef or lamb version. You can do either one. And I'm drinking 4 cups of bone broth a day. I am supposed to be in ketosis, getting up to 2.0, and I'm going to talk to you guys about that in just a second because I have an awesome update that I'm so excited about. Hey, when we don't get chocolate and we don't get wine, we have to get excited about other things. So I get excited about my ketones. That's what I get excited about. So it's a ketosis diet, and it's fasting. You're doing 18-6 fasting every single day, which doesn't sound like a lot of fasting, but if all you're eating is broth and soup, you get kind of hungrier. But I have my Keto Mojo here. I have the right strips today. Last week I didn't have my ketone strips with me. So I have the right strips. I have my Lancet. I have the old Keto Mojo from 2016 or something like that. One of these days I'm going to upgrade into the one that is better, but whatever. It's still working. It's one of those things where it's like you kind of hope that it dies so that you can have an excuse to get the new one. And I'm being so cheap. The new one literally costs $50, so I don't know what my problem is. But anyway, I'm going to show you guys what my glucose and my ketones are today. So I'm going to take my ketones first. And if you guys ever want to do this, literally this guy costs $50. You can get the newer one. It connects with your phone and does all kinds of cool things that this one doesn't do. You put this strip in, and I'm going to wait for, there's a tiny little blood drop that's going to appear. Okay, see how that blood drop is flashing? That means it's ready to go. Now, you're not putting it like on top of the slide. It's like a straw, and you want the blood drop to go right into there. And then you cock this thing so it's yellow, so that means it's not ready, and then I cocked it and that's ready. Put the finger on here, barely hurts. Squeeze some blood out of there. Not sure if you guys can see that. I hardly feel it. I don't even like wince. I've done this like hundreds of times. So excited to show you guys this. So I don't know for sure what mine is going to be this morning, but you guys get to find out with me. 1.9. Okay, can you guys believe that? I am so pumped what my ketones are right now. Because here's the deal. I ate yesterday. I ate food yesterday. And I never, ever have ketones this high unless I'm doing like a 3-day fast, like the end of my 3-day fast or something. Let me show you what my glucose is. We'll just see. Same thing, you put the glucose strip in the top, and then you wait for, oopsie, something didn't work that time. I'm using the same drop of blood, by the way. I don't have to prick myself twice. Okay, wait for that little drop to start. Oh, there it is. It's flashing. It's ready. Glucose takes a lot shorter to process than the ketone strip is. It's like 3 seconds. Okay, glucose is 80. I'm just going to write this down really quick because I'm going to show you guys how to do something with these numbers. Ketones is 1.9. Okay, so that was my ketones this morning because I haven't gone for a walk yet today because it's only 9 something my time, 9:37 my time, and I needed to prepare for this and stuff like that. Didn't go for a walk, but the other day I went for a walk in the morning, and then I waited until noon right before I broke my fast, and I took my ketones, and I have to show everybody what they were because I was so pumped. I'm going back through the history and trying to find the number because if you press this button, it shows you the history. You can tell I've taken my ketones a lot recently because, like I said, this is instead of eating chocolate. Oh, I found it. Oh, shoot. Okay. I found it and then I passed it. Okay. I'll find it again. Anyway, so I wanted to tell you guys that I feel fantastic, but on day 3, I had very, 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 very bad sugar cravings. And the best way to explain it was that I felt extremely hungry. Very like, I can't wait to go and eat like 5,000 cookies kind of hungry, but I didn't want to look at another bowl of chicken soup. So that's what I call a carb craving. And I don't know that it completely comes from my body. It might, but it also comes from those microbes dying off. So this is not my first rodeo. This is like my 500th rodeo. I've done multiple, I've probably done like 10 5-day fasts. I've done all kinds of 72-hour fasts. I've done 7-day fast. I've done a 10-day fast. So I was like, this is nothing. Like I knew that it was going to pass. It did. I'm having 0 carb cravings now, but that kind of stuff just happens. So I'm going to find this number for you guys because it's going to just, oh, no, that's not it. I promise you it's going to come up. Yeah, there it is. Okay. 3.1. Can you guys believe that? So I was so floored when I saw this 3.1. I was like, wow, that is the highest ketones I've ever had when not doing longer than a 24-hour fast. Because I'm only doing 18-hour fasts this whole week. I've only been doing 18-hour fasts. So I want to tell you guys about something called the GKI. So if you were to get the newer Keto Mojo, and by the way, I know this sounds like an infomercial, but I literally have no like affiliate links, or like if you buy the Keto Mojo, I don't get any money. I just think it's cool. The GKI stands for glucose ketone index, and the way you do it is you multiply the glucose divided by the ketones, and that gives you an index for how much healing is going on in your body. And so I think it's pretty cool. So the ultimate healing is if you could get your GKI down to less than 1. But before you do that, you only have to do 2 mathematical calculations. You guys can do this. So the glucose and the ketones are in different units. So you take the glucose. So the other day when my ketones were 3.1, my glucose was only 60, which if you don't have high ketones and your glucose goes down to 60, you would feel like catatonic, like you might have to go to the hospital, like feel so bad. But ketones is an alternate fuel source, so you feel totally fine. I felt completely fine with a glucose of 60. So you have to do 2 calculations. You take, and by the way, if you get the newer Keto Mojo, it calculates the GKI for you. So you take your glucose 60 and you divide it by 17, and that gets the units lined up. So 60 divided by 17 is 3.5. So then you take that number 3.5 and you divide it by the ketones, 3.1, and that gives me a GKI of 1.14. So here's the deal. The other day I was messaging online with an integrative doctor who I really appreciate, and he's so good about answering my messages, Dr. Fan. And he was saying that with his cancer clients, he tries to get their GKI below 1. And I was like, dude, how even do you get it below 1? I don't understand. That just seems so crazy. And he said, well, Dr. Seafried, who I consider like the guru of all things like metabolic cancer healing, he's like, that's the number he uses. So it's like, I don't even know how that's possible. But then when that happened to me the other day, I was like, now I see how it's possible. So if I could have gotten my ketones just a little higher, I could have been below 1. So now I am going to be challenging all my cancer clients to try to get up to that and to stay there. Now, after I eat, my ketones drop, which is totally normal. They drop down to about 1.5 and then they go back up. But healing, so the technical threshold for ketosis is like 0.5 or higher, but the healing really starts 1 to 1.5. Mary Reddick wants us at 2. And yeah, I'm getting up to, you guys saw I was just at 1.9. So I'm very happy with that. I'm going to see if I can get higher than 3.1 at one point. And I think it was just that the walking was really what did that. So this is a very, very ketogenic diet. Yeah, so I feel fantastic. It's in some ways it's been the easiest diet that I've ever done because it's really easy for me to just make the soup and be like, this is what I'm going to eat. And I'm just in the groove and I'm not overthinking it. And I'm also not like, well, can I have this food and can I have that food? I'm just like totally in the groove doing it, not questioning it. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, I'm a little stuffy. I did come down with a cold on Saturday morning. I think Friday night I started to feel like a little tickle, kind of sore throat thing going on. And then Saturday morning I woke up and I'm like, ugh, this is an actual real cold. And it's funny because are absolutely on the ketogenic diet. They have very few carbs. They are full of vitamin D and all kinds of other anti-inflammatory compounds. Shiitake is full of something called glyconutrients, which are necessary for cellular communication. Lion's mane is really good. They're anti-inflammatory. I mean, eat mushrooms till the cows come home, for all I'm concerned. They are so amazing for you. Absolutely ketogenic. Yeah. Okay. The sound cut out, Alex says. And I saw that I froze. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and if I'm not frozen? Yay, it's back. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And thank you for letting me know that. I don't want to just be blabbing on and no one can hear me. Okay, so I told you guys that I came down with a cold on Friday. And here's the deal. When you do any kind of a healing regimen, whether it be fasting or you're doing like a healing diet, like I'm doing, a gut healing diet. By the way, what this is supposed to do is supposed to heal my gut. 80% of the immune system is made in the gut, and that's supposed to reverse my autoimmune disease. And we will find out. We're going to find out if this works. By the way, I'm doing it for longer than a month. It's just the first month is soup, and then we move to phase 2, which is just a basic ketogenic diet, but no nightshades. There's a few more restrictions than just the basic keto diet. But so I totally lost my train of thought. I'm going to blame it on the spike protein or my autoimmune disease or something. Anyway, I'm just going to say that, oh, I know what I was going to talk about, you guys, is that anytime you do something healing, it is going to give you some possible setbacks before you get better. So while you're doing the 72-hour fast, you may get a headache. You may get diarrhea at the end. You may not feel your best. One person messaged me and said right after they finished the 72-hour fast, they got a flu. And it's important that you allow your body to heal and you recognize that those kinds of things are going to happen. So if you're like just ready to throw the towel in at any moment, I could have been like on Friday and Saturday, been like, listen, I've had nothing but bone broth and chicken soup for 5 days. I haven't had a cracker. I haven't had a sugar. I haven't like had an ounce of starch, and I'm sick, and no one else in my entire family is sick. And by the way, I feel like I'm mostly over it already, which would be the shortest cold that I've had in history. I'm a little stuffed up, but I'm feeling better already. So, but no one else in my family is sick. And you could just like get into this thing where you'd be like, it's not working and I'm quitting and this is dumb. But what you have to realize is that when your body heals, it goes through something called a Herxheimer reaction. You guys might have heard of this before. Sometimes people will shorten it, say I'm Herxing, or they'll shorten it for Herx. But the name of the scientist was Karl Herxheimer. And in 1895, he was healing people from syphilis by giving them mercury. Ah, red flag, red flag. That's not good. But anyway, that's what he was doing. And then later, penicillin. Thank goodness. I don't love penicillin, but I sure love it a whole lot more than mercury. Anyway, there's a bacteria that causes syphilis, and the bacteria was dying very rapidly, and that was releasing something into the patient's bloodstreams called endotoxin. And endotoxin causes you to have an inflammatory immune response. So these people were sick with syphilis. However, they got much sicker as they got better. Okay, so does that make sense? This is exactly what's happening to us when we are fasting or doing some sort of a cleansing diet, is that the bad bacteria are dying. They're giving off endotoxin, and that is causing us to have an inflammatory response and causing us to feel kind of nasty. It can. The nastier you feel, the more that you needed to heal. So I'm sorry to give you guys like TMI, but both myself and very close family member who did this diet have very bad diarrhea as part of it. And I believe it's the flushing. I have been taking my gut clear charcoal stuff at night to help with that, but I do believe that it's getting rid of a lot of toxins. So I'm only 1 week in. The family member who did this had diarrhea for 3 weeks while he was doing it. So yeah, it's your body is going through a Herxheimer reaction. You feel better before you feel worse. It's kind of like if you're cleaning out a closet and somebody walks in right in the middle, it looks so much worse. And that you have to pull everything out. And then you can sweep, and then you can scrub the walls and wipe down the shelves, and then you can donate some stuff and you can put everything back together very nicely, neatly, and organized. But in the beginning, in the middle, it looks worse before it gets better. And that's the stage that I'm in right now. And so I think that's why I got a cold. Sean said, would that be why this year I keep getting just about every illness my grandkids have? I think it could be. I mean, it's a little bit hard on your body to detox. And we have to be willing to have some setbacks. Like we have to be willing to take a step back before we get better. Um, so yeah, I'm taking vitamin C and I'm doing my normal crunchy things that I do when I have a cold, but I don't know. It just happens. And that might not be the only setback that I have this month. And you've just got to be prepared for that. Thankfully, I haven't had any headaches or anything like that. Um, so, and see, and the weird thing about this cold is none of my grandkids are even sick. None of my kids, not my married kids, nobody that I know is sick. And I just got this cold. But don't worry, that's not going to cause me to throw the towel in. So I have been taking a diary every day just to go over my symptoms. I write down my ketones, my sleep the night before. Oh, yesterday, all day, I laid out in the sun because sun therapy is so important when you're fasting. So if you're doing the 72-hour fast, try to get as much sun as you possibly can because it's just so healing. Yeah, anything else? See if I have anything else I wanted to tell you guys just about how that's going. Oh, also, I lost 7 pounds in 7 days, which is so weird because that's about how much I lose when I'm doing a water fast for 7 days. I'm losing 7 pounds. So I don't know how I possibly lost that much weight eating every day. Sure, I'm eating soup. I think it's both a loss of inflammation and the toxins coming out. But if some of it is fat loss, that is really releasing a lot of toxins. So that would explain why I was a little bit more susceptible to getting a cold, possibly. Um, yes. So, okay. I think that's all I'm going to say right now about how the soup diet is going. Oh, I know some other people asked me, they said, could you please share the recipes? And the guide that I'm using is behind a paywall. It actually costs $99. I know that sounds crazy, but I feel like it's worth its weight in gold. It's an amazing guide. Think about how much medical care costs, how much a doctor visit costs. So I don't want to share the recipes just because I feel like Mary Ruddick put a lot of work into them. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to write my own. And I don't feel bad doing that because Mary Ruddick borrowed from the Gap's author, not borrowed, but like she was inspired by the Gap's author. This is her diet is based on Gap's intro. And her name is Natasha McBride. Natasha McBride got a lot of her inspiration from the Gap's diet from the special carbohydrate diet, which was a diet where you avoid all kinds of starches. So anyway, everybody's borrowing from everyone. And so I don't feel bad about writing my own recipes inspired by Mary Ruddick and Natasha McBride and the special carbohydrate diet. I don't know what that author's name is because everybody's doing that. But I just don't want to give you guys Mary Ruddick's exact recipes. They're so delicious, but I'm going to write my own and then I'll share those with you guys. Okay. Types, last thing that I wanted to cover today is types of fast for different types of people. Ooh, question. I like questions. Danny asked, do you use an enema protocol with water and then coffee while fasting or not fasting? I've heard a lot about the enemas and I've never personally done an enema. So I was actually just yesterday listening to a functional medicine doctor on YouTube talking about coffee enemas. And the first reason why I had never done them is because I didn't know what they did and I didn't know what the point was. And then he explained the coffee kind of going up into your intestines and stimulating some nerve connections and detoxification and stuff like that. I've never felt that I needed one, but yeah, I've never done them. I do know people who do them. So if you have had a good response with doing them, go ahead and comment in the message. Yeah. Okay, so moving on. Types of fasts. four different types of people. I tend to group people into kind of two categories, and there's a lot of in between. But we have one kind of person, and would be my husband is the quintessential type of person who most of their life they're naturally thin. And they've just never been a big eater. They've never had problems with binge eating. They're not addicted to carbs. They just don't have a lot of problems. So this kind of person can usually do really well with the 16-8 fast. And with just that amount of fasting, this kind of person can normally lose all of their weight. And so if you meet somebody and they're like, I lost all my weight 16-8 fasting, you can be like, well, that kind of falls into a certain category of person. And I'm happy for that person. Because my husband is like that. He's been naturally thin all his life, but he did have 30 pounds to lose. And that's kind of what happens when you get into your late 40s, mid 40s, late 40s. It starts to pack on. It was all the most unhealthy weight right around his middle, and he hid it well. Like nobody thought like, ooh, he needs to lose weight. It was all hidden, but it was there. And it was causing his blood pressure. So his blood pressure was 30 points too high. And when he lost that 30 pounds, his blood pressure is now perfect. So that was really important for him to do. But because he's never been a super big eater, he just has never had weight troubles until just this what we call normal in America weight came on. He did really well with 16-8 fasting, but it was really hard for him in the morning. And that thinner kind of person, that kind of wiry person, they just need to eat more often for whatever reason. So he actually did most of his weight loss from doing a morning window. He would eat breakfast, he would eat lunch, and then he would just sit there with the rest of the family while the rest of the family ate dinner. And he loved that. And that's how he lost all his weight. And so if you have a person who's really, really uncomfortable in the morning, then that's something that you could try. And when it comes to the studies have always shown that the morning eating window is better for weight loss than the afternoon eating window. I've known that forever, and I don't care because I don't like the morning eating window, and I might not ever do it. Actually, I was thinking of maybe experimenting with it while I'm doing this soup diet. I haven't done it yet, but I was thinking of doing a morning eating window this week just to. The reason why I haven't liked to do it is because I love looking forward to a meal at the end of the day. And so, but when you're only eating soup, I was like, I don't know if I'm looking forward to my soup that much. It does taste good, but I thought it might be a good time to try a morning eating window. I don't know why. So I was seeing if there was another question, and there's not. So the morning eating window is consistently always better at weight loss. It's better at reducing insulin resistance. Like any factor that has been done in any study that I've ever read has always said the morning eating window is better. But for me, I thought it's more important. I really like eating dinner with my family. Of course, when I did alternate day fasting, I never did that anyway. So I'm used to kind of not doing that. But I always felt like those considerations were more important than it being, quote, better. But it's just something that you could try. And I've heard of people that they eat at like 10 in the morning, and that's their OMAD. And that might be people that don't have like a lot of kids and big families at home. Although I have heard some people say that if they have a lot of little kids, they love doing that because at lunch and dinner, they're focused on feeding their own kids, and they have like maybe toddlers that they have to cut the meat up for and stuff like that. And they can just focus on feeding their kids and not eating themselves. So that's just something to think about. Now, you have myself on the other end of the extreme. So you have my husband, naturally thin his whole life, not a big eater. Then you have myself, who has tendencies to just be able to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and never get full. And mountains of carbs, and just, I have a very, very big appetite. And that kind of person does really well with a longer fast. So you guys know my story was that I never lost any weight doing one meal a day. Like, who on the planet doesn't lose weight doing one meal a day? Well, that was me. Now that I've found out that I have all these things wrong with my thyroid, like really, really, really severely low thyroid function, I wonder if that was part of the reason why I couldn't lose any weight on OMAD. I don't know. But I know of other people that couldn't lose weight on OMAD either. So when you have a person who's not responding to 16-8, that's when you've got to mix up the fasting schedule a little bit. So usually where I start people is telling them that I want them to do one 36-hour fast every week. And then Tuesday can be an up day where they eat 2 meals. And then Wednesday through Sunday, we'll do something like 19-5, 24, 21-3, something else, something like that. That usually works well. I have quite a few people that I have now put on the alternate day fasting schedule, and they have been getting really good results with that. So if you're just a person who has some weight loss resistance, you might need to do the longer fasts. And you can't really know which of these two categories you fall into unless you try. So I always like people to start with 16-8. Some people do really well with shifting the amount of the kinds of food they eat. So they do well with emphasizing proteins, high protein, emphasizing high natural animal fats such as butter. Coconut oil is good too, even though it's not an animal fat, beef tallow, avoiding all vegetable oils, and then vegetables. And I like people to eat their food in that order. I know a lot of people will say vegetables first, but the reason why I do proteins plus fats and then vegetables next is because I want to challenge people to eat enough protein. But then if you do have vegetables and you have vinegar on them, like a salad, and then you do have some carbs at the end, the vinegar on the salad or the vegetables will keep you from absorbing the carbs as quickly. But some people need to, when they're on a 16-8, they need to really reduce their carbs down to close to zero. So they really need to do kind of a keto diet to stick with 16-8. And if you don't like to do that, you really want to have, one of your homemade sourdough breads or something like that. Then you might need to do something like an alternate day fast. And it might just be throwing in 136 a week, maybe two. Another schedule I use with people is 2 times 48. So how does someone become one of your clients? JJ asks. So on the bottom of all of my emails, so this would be like every email that you've gotten from me that's longer. I know I don't always put it on the bottom of the really short emails that I sent out last night that was like, hey, 72-hour fast is starting. I know this didn't have it, but all the longer emails that have like more information in them, they always have a link down at the very bottom to my coaching practice, and you just click on that. And I also offer free 15-minute consultations because before you actually sign up for a 1-hour meeting with me, you might want to just meet with me for 15 minutes and make sure that the things that you have going on, I'm going to be able to help you with. And I always have you fill out a pretty in-depth questionnaire because sometimes there's stuff going on that I need to know about, sleep and stress and all that kind of thing to know if it has anything to do with your fasting and stuff like that. So yeah, any more questions? But yeah, the best way to really figure out what your ideal fasting window is to experiment. So start with 16-8, slowly narrow it, see at what point you start to lose weight. A lot of times people will fall into maybe like an 18-6 or 19-5 window. They're having a snack, they're having dinner, they're losing weight at a great pace, and then all of a sudden they plateau. Now, I don't consider a plateau if it's like 1 week or 2 weeks. I would say you'd have to be at the same weight for at least a month to consider it a plateau, and that's where it really helps to do a 36-hour fast. That will lower your fasting insulin, meaning the basic amount of insulin that's going through your blood at all times. That's what controls your set weight, your body's set point, a weight that it kind of wants to stay at is hormonally controlled by insulin. You shift that downward, and then you will shift downward your set weight. As long as you don't undo all of that hard work you did in the 36-hour fasting by binging on a bunch of like carbs and ice cream and things like that, which is possible. But if you really lean into the appetite correction that happens after a longer fast, meaning that your brain is able to hear the signal leptin, a hormone released from your fat stores that gives your brain an idea of how much energy is on the system, on the body. Once you're sensitive to leptin again, which happens after a 36 or 40-hour fast, then you can hear your satiety signals. That tells you when to stop. And you will, if you listen to those satiety signals, you don't blow past them because you, quote, like to eat, but you become more intuitive, then you should be able to continue to drop the weight that you need to drop. And so that's for weight loss, but obviously the 40-hour fast has a lot of benefits too. What I tend to find with people who don't need to lose weight is that they are perfectly fine. Of course, they'll drop some pounds during the 36-hour fast. That's, water weight and inflammation, but they'll just bounce right back up, and they're able to maintain their weight. So it's mostly people who need to lose weight that will lose weight during the 36-hour fast. But if you're wanting to know, like, sometimes people will ask me in my coaching practice, like, what is the ultimate fasting protocol for someone who's struggling with weight loss and they want to get this weight loss off? I think the very best protocol is for someone who's already tried 16-8 or OMAD and hasn't had the success that they want. I really think the Monday, Wednesday, Friday protocol is the best one. If you've been doing that for a while and you haven't been losing weight, that's when it's time to go to the doctor and get some tests done. And I give clients a list of tests that I recommend if you have what's called weight loss resistance. I like people to test their cortisol. Oh, okay. Special announcement really quick. I got a bunch of labs. You know me, I go to LabCorp like all the time. So per usual, I was at LabCorp what's today, Monday? Probably like Wednesday or Thursday, I went to LabCorp. Got some more tests done. So here's the deal. Here's what I want to say. People are constantly on the internet saying that intermittent fasting and keto causes your cortisol to go up. I can't remember how many times I've heard this. Sorry, Fiji water time. Fiji water has dissolved silica in it that gets the aluminum out of your body. Okay, and this got especially annoying for people who follow Mercola. Mercola has done some good things, of course. He was against the vax, and I'm so happy that he spoke out about the vaccine, blah, 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 all that. He has turned on keto and low carb and fasting. And he keeps writing these articles for people, and they say that keto and low carb and fasting cause your cortisol to go up. I have had my cortisol tested 3 times, people. And this last time I got my cortisol tested, and I already have the test results back, was the day that my ketones were 3.1. So listen, Dr. McCullough et al., other people that are saying this, my cortisol was not high. And I was as deep into the ketogenic diet as one can possibly be. You don't really get higher into the ketogenic diet than 3.1. And that was the day that I went and got my ketones or my cortisol tested. My cortisol at 9 a.m. was 12. My functional integrative practitioner said that she would actually like it a little higher. She's like, I wish it were. She's like, it's fine. It's technically in normal range. But if you wanted to feel your really, really best, we should see if we can get it up to 15 in the morning. And as I've talked about many times, you want a nice high cortisol spike in the morning, then it falls throughout the day. JJ said his doctor says stay away from Fiji because of fluoride. So my understanding is this does not have any fluoride in it, even naturally occurring, but I don't have all the statistics off the top of my head, so I'm going to write myself a note, JJ, to look into fluoride in the Fiji water. I don't believe it has any in it, or trace. Yeah. So anyway, I know that I'm only one person. So if you are concerned about this whole Dr. McCullough, there's this whole what's his name? Ray Pete. There's a whole Ray Pete's no longer alive, but there's a bunch of his followers who are on the line, and they're saying that you have to eat sugar every 15 minutes. I'm not even kidding. Blah 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 to keep your cortisol down. Anyway, my cortisol is fine. If you are concerned, you can go and you can test your cortisol. I have a post on my Substack that you can search for that says, explains you how to order your own blood work without having to have a doctor's appointment. I think the cortisol test was $15. I don't remember. It's somewhere very inexpensive in there. Um, and if you're worried about that when you read that stuff online, because I get a lot of messages from people and they're like, I'm so scared. Dr. Mercola scared me and said that my cortisol is going to be high if I do low carbon fasting, and that's going to cause me to gain weight and blah, blah, blah. So, like I said, my cortisol is not high. And like I said, I've tested it 3 times recently. Alex said about variety with people's experience on keto. How you eat keto matters a lot. What your food has eaten and how has it lived? What sunlight levels do you get? Microbiome influences, dairy influences in relation to microbiome, and much more. Yeah, I think what Alex is saying is that if you do what's called dirty keto, which is you're eating a lot of conventionally raised pork, that was fed mostly corn and soy, then that fat is going to be much more rich in omega-6s instead of omega-3s, and same with beef. And omega-6s are very inflammatory. So if you're switching to a very high meat diet and you're eating very poor choices, you could have a negative experience. I know one of the doctors I've listened to quite a bit, his name is Dr. Ken Berry. He's on YouTube. He has a family practice. He always tells his patients that if all you can afford is the cheapest meat, that's still better than you eating corn and soy. Um, so there's some, you know, debate about this. How I chose to handle it is I got local beef, and it ended up being, including the processing, I believe about $6 a pound. And this includes like getting steaks and all the different cuts. And so I feel like that was actually cheaper. It's grass fed, 100% grass fed, finished, everything like that, organic, all that. So I did that, and then I buy local chicken. So I have a local lamb in my freezer, those grass fed, and I have a local pig that was raised locally in my freezer. And I know these people personally, and I know what they fed their animals and stuff. Um, but yeah, I think what Alex is trying to say is that you might do some damage if you're eating really poor meat. Yeah, and I mean, sunlight is absolutely necessary. And if your microbiome is really messed up, then you might have a hard time on keto. Although keto really heals your microbiome, but it might take some time. And that just goes back to the bad bacteria feeding mostly on carbs, and you can starve them over time. Yeah. So see if there's any more questions. Yeah. I really also want to encourage people to move away from tap water as much as possible. So some of the things that I'm doing with this diet, which I was already doing, but when you make the soups, you cannot use tap water. You have to use reverse osmosis water, just because this is supposed to be a healing, like a gut healing protocol. And so you don't want to be putting a bunch of glyphosate. In my area, we never drink the tap water in my house. And the reason is because I live in a very high agricultural area, and there's wheat fields all around me. This is like one of the highest producing wheat counties in the country, unfortunately, because it's not good wheat. It's on completely depleted soils, and there's planes out there crop dusting it with glyphosate, and it's just horrific. So our water is horrific. It's full of pesticides and all kinds of stuff. And then also, if you live in a college town, you're also going to have a lot of metabolites from things like birth control and other medications that people are on. Of course, that's going to be in any town, but we have a higher percentage of college age girls who are on birth control in my town, and that birth control is going to get into the water because it comes out of the urine and it's not completely removed by the city processing. So there's just a number of reasons why tap water. We actually don't have our water treated by fluoride in our town, so that's good, but there's just other kinds of horrific things that are in the tap water. So reverse osmosis system under your sink is the most cost efficient in the long term. In the short term, it costs about $350. I recommend one called AquaTrue. You can also buy AquaTrue, has a less expensive countertop version. I think it's about 150, 200, something like that. And then you can also get, we get Collagen water. And the reason why, okay, this sounds so silly. I have never switched to the under the sink reverse osmosis because we have this cool looking Collagen dispenser system. And on it, it has like an instant hot water button. So I'm just so reliant on that thing that I feel like I can't give it up. So if I got this reverse osmosis under the sink system, I wouldn't have that instant hot water that's on my Collagen machine anymore. And so I keep saying over and over, I'm like, yes, we're going to get an under the sink RO system. It's going to be great. And then like, I just keep going back to Collagen and getting their water is reverse osmosis, by the way. Yeah. So that's, yeah. Okay, so Jenny said, is there a chance any of Mary Reddick healing guides would be all right to use in pregnancy? Okay, so Jenny, if you don't mind me asking, which kind of healing guide were you thinking? So she has one on cancer, she has one on dysautonomia, then obviously autoimmune disease. I think I have this pulled up on Chrome right now. But which guide were you thinking of using? Um, I mean, the good thing about, okay, let me go to this real quick. So, dysautonomia, antiviral, autoimmune, diabetes, weight loss, anti cancer, and then she has a few recipe books. So, you don't really want to try to be losing weight at all while you're pregnant. You want to just be eating healthy, nourishing foods. Oh, for weight loss. Okay, got it. I would not try to lose weight when I'm pregnant. What I would try to do is eat 3 meals a day, avoid snacking, and especially because when you're snacking, anything that you eat is almost always not healthy. Like, what do you grab with a snack? It's going to be like a carb or something. So, really avoid snacking and really emphasize protein with each meal, and that will make you feel more full. And so I get this question quite a bit. People say, I'm pregnant, can I fast? The answer is no. And what should I do to keep from gaining too much weight? It's really emphasize protein. That will make you feel full. Eat as much protein as you possibly can and really avoid simple carbohydrates, and have lots of vegetables and have lots of bone broths and nourishing things like that. You need a lot of glycine when you're pregnant, and glycine is the building block for collagen, which is the major kind of protein that we have in our body. And so you're building a new body. So make sure that you're getting a lot of broths, and that will help you feel so full and so satisfied. And then another thing is you need a lot of choline. And those are two things that are not commonly talked about when you talk about pregnancy and nutrition. Oh, and by the way, Jenny, I have a post that you could search for um, on what to eat when you're pregnant. But choline is found mostly in egg yolks and beef liver. But if you eat 4 egg yolks a day, you'll get the choline that you need, and that's super important for the developing baby's body. And so, of course, you need iron you can get from beef liver. You need calcium from good dairy products, and you need so much protein. So, yeah, I don't. So I would not use Mary Reddick's weight loss guide when I'm pregnant because you should not be trying to lose weight. You should just be trying not to gain too much. Sean Surdick. Oh, thank you, Sean. So I forgot that. So Sean's son sells and installs under the counter RO systems. So really what I should do is I should get your son to install my under the counter RO system. And then I should just get one of these like little instant hot water things that you can buy for your sink. Maybe that's attached to that. I just really like having instant hot water. I'm so spoiled. Okay. Wendy Webb said, is there a protein to fat ratio I should strive for? Good question. And that completely depends on if somebody wants to, 1, lose weight, number 2, maintain weight, number 3, gain weight. So we'll start with gain weight. Obviously, if you want to gain weight, you want to really eat as much fat as you possibly can. And if you want to maintain weight, you're going to just keep the fat kind of in the middle. And then if you want to lose weight, you're going to have minimal amount of fat because your body needs saturated fat, but you can get the saturated fat from your own tissues. So what happens when you eat very high protein and very high vegetable meals is with very few carbs is that your body will use for energy, it will use your own fat stores. So here's how it works. There's really only two of the three macronutrients which can be used for energy. So your body is constantly losing energy in the form of heat off the top of your head and each of your cells. So when you eat protein, that's just for maintaining your bone and your skin and all of your internal organs. That's what protein does. Some of protein can be converted to glucose, but most of it is not. It's a very slow process. And if you were to eat pure protein, you would actually die from something called rabbit starvation after you lost all of the fat that was on your body, of course. Then you would die from something called rabbit starvation. Rabbit is a very lean meat, and that's where the term came up with. And what it means is that the body is not able to what's the word I'm looking for? Transform protein into an energy source fast enough. And it gives off a lot of, I'm going to mess this up, I think it's nitrogen. There's an element that it gives off that builds up in the body and causes you to have terrible diarrhea. Ammonia. I think it's ammonia, which is even an element on the periodic table. But I believe it's ammonia. So anyway, although small amounts of protein are converted to glucose, you need a fuel source, which is either fat or it's either carbs. So when you reduce your carbs, your body will then rely on either the fat in your diet or the fat on your body as its fuel source. So eating a very high protein, high vegetable with minimal fats will cause your body to burn its own fat like crazy. So I think that's the reason why I lost 7 pounds in 7 days on this diet, is because I didn't add a lot of the fats to the soup that she said to. So she, in her guide, gives you 3 different plans for losing weight, for maintaining, and for gaining. And so for my family member who was doing this diet, he needed to gain weight. So he was eating, like, his wife was like, you need to eat a stick of butter a day. So that's what he was doing. But I have some fats floating around in there, and the meat has some fat in it. So I'm getting some fat, but the rest of the fat that's required is just coming from my own tissues. So I don't know if I answered your question exactly, Wendy Webb, but the way that I answer this is more in line with a practitioner I follow called Ted Naiman, and he wrote a book called The Protein Leverage Hypothesis. And so his point is that the amount of protein that you eat really helps with appetite correction, and your body has a set amount of amino acids that it needs to hit every single day. And if it does not hit that amount of amino acids, or which are building blocks of protein, otherwise, if it doesn't hit that amount of protein, it signals you to keep eating. So when you eat large amounts of protein first, your body's like, okay, I'm ready, I'm done, I have everything I need. And you can eat a lot less food. And he really, for weight loss, he really pushes leaner proteins. And then your body uses that for maintaining and repairing its tissues. And then it uses its own fat, its own saturated fat on the system for its fuel. So I guess I'm not really, I've never been into like measuring and weighing things. So what I'm doing is I'm just having less fat than, for instance, a client of mine who was doing keto, but he needs to gain weight. I'm having him pour butter on all his vegetables, like pour the butter on. And so it's also interesting that without eating a lot of fat, I was able to get my ketones up to 3.1, and I'm not eating that much fat. That's because I have fat on my body to utilize. But for somebody who was extremely skinny and didn't have that fat to utilize, their body would be turning the protein that they ate into glucose as quickly as they could, which isn't super quickly, but up to 40% of that protein could be converted to glucose. And then there's another problem going on, which is if your insulin is extremely high, then that makes it more difficult for your body to access the fat stores. I've used an analogy in the past of think of your fat stores as like a deep freezer down in the basement, and insulin closes and locks that door so that you can't get to it. And then you're constantly feeling hungry and you're like, hey, body, listen, I've got 40 pounds of fat on the person for you to use. Instead of telling me to eat, how about you use that? And then that's because your insulin is too high. And then that means you need to do more fasting. Okay. Oh, Jenny says she has the post. Perfect. And I think, yeah, we were talking about pregnancy and stuff. Do you recommend sunflower lecithin? So sunflower lecithin is a source of choline. And we were talking about choline. And just to give you guys some background, before choline was discovered, and they used to give people IVs they still do this. When you give someone an IV because they're in a coma, they forgot to put the choline in, or they didn't know it existed, and people developed fatty liver disease. And then they were like, oh, I forgot something. In the IV, it's choline. And so that's how it was discovered. I think it's fine to get choline from sunflower lecithin. So keep in mind that when you're using sunflower lecithin, and also if you use liposomal vitamin C, that also uses sunflower lecithin. And after I recommended that, I got a few messages and people were like, wait, we're not supposed to have sunflower oil. But keep in mind that it's not going through that process that the seed oils normally go through. If you see my post on seed oils, I have a picture of a seed oil factory, and it's going through hexane, and it's like all of these gross, disgusting industrialized processes to refine it. And so when you're getting it, a sunflower lecithin supplement, or it's for liposomal vitamin C, it hasn't gone through all those processes. So I think it's fine. Yeah, I'm looking to see if there's any more questions. My fellow electric kettle heats water really fast. Okay, I do have an electric kettle. I'm just telling you guys, I'm so lazy. I love walking over to the Culligan and having instant hot water come out. And I use it for tea, and I use it for when I'm making soups. Then the soup cooks really fast because I have this instant hot water. I do know about William Davis, Sean, and his podcast. His products. Okay, so William Davis, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that he's the doctor that came up with a special kind of yogurt that has a bacteria in it called L. reuteri. And we all naturally have L. reuteri in our gut. Or we should. We should actually have L. reuteri in our gut. Okay, this is going to sound so crazy, you guys, but I think it's actually true. When you don't have this bacteria that you're supposed to have, it makes your personality kind of change. And this is what Dr. William Davis has written about. If I'm thinking of the right person, I think I am. He's written a lot about when you have more L. reuteri, it makes you produce more like loving hormones towards other people. I know this sounds crazy, but it makes you more like compassionate and like empathetic, and like you look at your loved ones and you feel more like care towards them or whatever, for both men and women. And so he came up with these yogurt products that give you a lot of L. reuteri in the yogurt so that you can repopulate your gut, so you can act like a normal human being. And then I could get all like weird conspiracy theory on you and be like, we're purposely being poisoned so that we don't have the right gut bacteria, so that we're all so mad at each other all the time. No, I won't go there. But Sean, am I thinking of the right person? I have made his L. reuteri yogurt before. I bought his little like packet, and you have to keep the yogurt at exactly like 110 degrees as it's fermenting, and it was great. And then I couldn't get anyone else in my family to eat it because it didn't look exactly like store-bought yogurt, but I ate it and I thought it was great. And I don't know if I'm more empathetic, but L. reuteri is also in kefir. So I forgot why journaling is helpful and what you are to journal. So Sean, in my journal, I'm just writing down how I slept the night before. I'm writing down my ketones. Let's see, what else am I writing down? I wrote down that I got a cold. It's just a health journal. I don't overthink it too much. Oh, I wrote down my heart rate variability. See, part of this is that I'm trying to debunk the fasting haters who are like, fasting is so bad for you. It's going to drive your cortisol up. So now I have the data that didn't drive my cortisol up. Um, and and keto is supposed to drive your cortisol up. And I was deep into ketosis. My cortisol was not driven up, but also my heart rate variability. I'm writing that down. HRV is a stress response. So when you're stressed, your HRV is low. I know that sounds inverse. And when you're feeling super unstressed, your body is not stressed, your HRV is high. I had one night where my HRV was 90. I don't know if that number means anything to anybody, but that's a very high HRV. It means my body's not stressed. It's actually feeling great on this diet, even though it's ketogenic. Okay, take that. Take that, Dr. What's his name? Okay, what else? Oh, I am measuring my waist measurement. Oh, I'm also writing down things like I have struggled with feeling very, very sluggish in the morning. So Monday, on April 21st, so that was a week from today, was the first day I started, and I woke up saying that I just have a general very sluggishness in the morning. I've struggled with this my entire life. And I'm noticing that that's getting better each day. I don't know if it's the ketones. I was writing down, like on day 3, how I had the terrible carb withdrawal symptoms. And then I'm writing down that those are basically gone. I also wrote down a note like yesterday after lunch, after I eat my soup, I was just feeling so like full and satisfied and full of wonderful things. And I saw my husband eating a chocolate, which is perfectly fine. He's a healthy weight. He doesn't have autoimmune disease. He can eat chocolate if he wants. And he doesn't eat a lot like I do. When I eat chocolate, I eat like 5 pieces. So just eat one and be done. But I watched him eat a chocolate and I thought, there's actually nothing in me right now that wishes that I could be eating that chocolate too. And it was just because of how I feel. Like my body feels so good and so energized, and my mind is so clear. And I just don't need that. And it's not that I'm never going to eat chocolate again, but when you really get into like a groove of doing something good for your body, you don't, all of a sudden that stuff just doesn't become that important to you. So I wrote down that in my journal. Um, just seeing. Oh, so Sean, you're saying your William Davis yogurt thing arrived and you're going to make yogurt soon. So Sean, you'll just need to keep the whole group posted on how the yogurt goes. I've made it a couple times, and I think it was the first time it didn't turn out super well. Um, so I hope yours goes really well. It was keeping it exactly 110 degrees that was a little tricky, but let me know how your yogurt changes. I would say, so Sean's my friend in town, I would say bring some over to me and I will taste it, but I dairy isn't on my list for this month. And it's not because dairy's bad for you. It's just we're doing a total gut reset. And so that's just not one of the things we're using this month. And Ruth said, I've been making the L-Uterite yogurt for a month. Okay, good for you. I am so curious if you've noticed anything about your feelings, Ruth, since you've been eating this L-Reuteri yogurt for a month. So you don't use a probiotic pill and you making your Instapot. That's what I did too. Okay, although here, so Ruth, is your L-Reuteri yogurt turning out in your Instant Pot? You might have a newer Instant Pot version than I have, because I have like one of the first Instant Pots that came out. It does have a yogurt button on it, but when I was measuring the temperature with my thermometer, it wasn't getting it. When I used the yogurt button, it wasn't getting it to quite the right temperature. So, but Ruth, type in the comments and let me know if you've noticed anything. Like, are you feeling more, I don't know, compassionate, empathetic towards people since you've started doing the L-Reuteri? The other thing that Dr. Davis said about the L-Reuteri is it causes your body to make a ton more collagen. So it's supposed to improve your skin and whatnot. But I guess that's something you might not see over a month. Maybe you would. I don't know. Okay. He said that antibiotics remove that particular bacteria. Thank you, Sean. So that's why we're all like depleted of L-Reuteri, is if we've been on antibiotics and it might not have a chance to grow back. L-Reuteri yogurt would be like the perfect thing to eat when you're done with your 72-hour fast or any fast. even just like your daily fast, you could break it with that L-reuteri yogurt, and that would be amazing. Okay, but Sean said that whatever other locals we have on this call right now, um, you can contact her and she will let you try her L-reuteri yogurt. And also, you guys, you should like maybe you can give little pieces of the yogurt or like little bits of the yogurt out to other people as starters, because I think it's the kind of thing where you don't have to keep buying that packet from William Davis, but then you just use a little bit of it to make the next batch. So yeah, so Ruth said her first batch was not great, but after all have been great. Okay, so that's kind of how it worked with me too. My first batch wasn't great and then it got better. I have a yogurt setting for the right temperature setting. I think that does make me, she says, it does make her feel good. See, we should all be doing this L-reuteri stuff. You guys can even just Google William Davis yogurt, and I'm sure you'll find the website with all the info on that. Ida said, would anyone like to share a start of the yogurt? And yeah, so you need, when you make the L-reuteri yogurt, I believe that you need a probiotic food called inulin that you can buy. I think I bought mine, you guys, at the co-op. I might have. I don't remember. Because I remember like I was in this situation where I got this stuff from William Davis in the mail and I was like all excited and I was like all ready to make it and I was like, stink, I don't have inulin. And I didn't want to wait for it to come from Amazon. We live in like the remote part of the earth in Idaho, and there's no such thing as 2-day Amazon Prime. It's like I share this Amazon account with some of my family members, and sometimes it thinks that I'm in LA. The Amazon website does. And so I put a product in my cart and it's like, it's right currently noon. It's like, it'll be at your house in 2 hours or something like that. And I'm like, oh, great. And then I put in my actual address and it's like, never mind, 2 weeks. So yeah. So I didn't want to wait for it to come to Amazon. So I think I went to the co-op and found some inulin. Okay. So Sean is going to text a signal group. I think it's so cool that my local fasting peeps all started a signal group where they signal each other and encourage each other about fasting and stuff. I tried to kind of do something like that with a Facebook group, but and I still do post stuff on my local Facebook group every now and then, but I think the signal group is really cool because it's just like more of like a moment by moment, like supporting one another. I think that's so cool. I think everybody should try to figure something like that out. So I was just looking through my my notes, like what kinds of things that you should put in a health journal. What kinds? Yeah, just write down, instead of telling yourself like this is what you have to write down, just literally write down anything that comes to mind that has to do with your health and how what you're doing is affecting it, especially if you start doing like something like an autoimmune diet or a soup diet or whatever you're doing, your 72-hour fasting. And then you can go back and look at other 72-hour fasts and how you improve. Because I really think that the more fasts that you do, the easier they get every single time. And the less side effects you have, the less you feel kind of groggy or achy or food cravings or headaches, things like that. They just go away the more fast that you do. The first 72-hour fast is usually pretty brutal, and they get better. They really get better. So when you write down things like that, you can see your progress over time. Yeah. Oh, I wrote on Tuesday, so this was day 2 of doing the soup diet, that my muscles hurt a little bit and I had a slight headache, and I don't have that at all now. So I didn't even remember that I had that. I wrote that it feels like detox symptoms, and so I'm not having that. Yeah, there was something else that I wanted to say about the Dr. McCullough thing about how you're going to supposedly have high cortisol or whatever when you're fasting or doing keto, and I can't remember what it was. So I'm going to give you guys one more last call for questions. And if not, I will go ahead and sign off. And then next week, I'm going to be in LA again next week visiting family. So I probably won't do a live Monday. I might do one on a different day of the week. See, I get back from LA late on Tuesday night, very late on Tuesday night. So I'm not going to do Wednesday. Maybe I'll do it on Thursday. We will see. And I have been laboring away at a post on autoimmunity that's almost done. And I was doing like a very big, well written post every Tuesday. But since I've been doing these lives, kind of sending out a follow up email with that, I don't always feel as obligated to do that. And also, I'm just really busy. So, but I do have a post coming. So, let me see if I got any questions. Yeah, I don't seem to have any more questions. So, I'm going to sign off and follow up video will be coming. Okay, bye bye.